Hello, it is Monday, another Monday, and so we're going to continue with on how to self-publish your books or how to publish your books. The first two, we've already discussed the first two ways of publishing your books, and obviously we've already discussed how to write your book, how to prioritize your time to write the book, curing writer's block, etc., how to copyright. And then the first thing we talked about is how to publish a book with big publishing companies. The second thing we talked about is how to publish a book with small publishing companies. Now we're going to talk about how to self-publish your books, meaning you do it yourself. I'd say the best thing about self-publishing, which is better than the other two ways, is there are hundreds of ways to do it. You can do it, it can be where you do 100% of the work, and then it can be where you do 50% of the work, it can be where you do 70% of the work, and you get to decide what percentage of the work in self-publishing you do, and then obviously what percentage you hire someone else to do the rest. Let's talk about pre-publishing. The first thing you want to do is find a publishing company. There's lots of them online. Below you'll see some links. Once you come to the conclusion which publishing company you want to use to publish your book, the next thing you want to do is find their information on the size of the books, you know, the dimensions and all of that, on what your file needs to be exactly, and also your cover size, what size the cover needs to be, the size of the JPEG and all that. If you're not familiar with any of that, you can always go to Fiverr, Fiverr.com, and find someone to design your book cover, or you can do it yourself. Or you can just go online and find a graphic designer, or specifically a book cover designer who knows how to design books. But it needs to be the dimension that the publishing company recommends, which you can find that on their website. And even when you're uploading the information, if it's not right, it'll let you know that this is not the right size, and then it'll tell you what size your book cover needs to be, depending on whether you're doing paperback or you know, the different size books that they have. Obviously, we've already talked about copywriting. You're going to need to copyright it and then work on the book cover. If you don't do it yourself, like I said, there's a lot of websites out there where you can find someone who can design your book cover for you. The next thing you want to look for, you don't have to have these, but they're nice to have. Definitely, maybe not for your first book, but going on, and also depending on what type of book you write, whether it's self-help, fiction, etc., etc. You want to work on forwards and reviews. When it comes to the forwards, like I said, you don't need to have a forward, but if you want one, obviously you're going to want to look for someone with a name, some kind of name, or at least someone who's in the field of your writing, in the topic that you're writing. So if you are writing nonfiction, it would be wise to get a forward. Obviously, if you're writing on healthy eating, you would want to find a nutritionist or someone in holistic doctor, something like that, obviously, to write your forward. If you're writing a book on finances, you're going to want to find someone who is either a bookkeeper or someone, a tax preparer, someone in the financial field, to write your forward. But those are not needed, but it's a nice addition to your book. Reviews, obviously you would want to, this is in which we talked about earlier, when getting someone to edit your book. If you do get someone to edit your book, you can ask them to write a review. Or, of course, prior to publishing your book, give your book to, I would say, 2 to 3 people. Again, someone in the field of your book. And if it's nonfiction, I mean, if it's a fiction book, then obviously anyone is fine. But like if you write a children's book, find a teacher or a librarian to write a review for you, and then you can use that review not only in your publicity and your marketing, but you can, and advertising, but you can also use it on the back of your book, or on the one of the last pages of the cover of the book. So those are good to have. Small things, work on your thank yous and your dedications and your appreciations. If you want to add that to your book, you would add that right before publishing it. You would work on that, and that would be the pre-publishing part. Like I said, working on the cover, the forwards, the reviews, thank you, dedication, appreciations, and making sure it's copywritten. Once that is all said and done, now you can publish your book. And this is the fun part, but it's also this is actually the beginning. It's not the end. It sounds like it's the end, but this is the beginning, because now that your book is published, the question is, who knows about it? Does anybody know that the book actually exists? And of course, now if the answer is no, you have a lot of work to do to get your book noticed. And so we are going to be talking about that later. Next week we're going to start talking about marketing. But in publishing your book, like I said, there's links below. You can check out the websites. I use CreateSpace as well as Lulu.com. I have 2 books from CreateSpace, and all my other books are on Lulu.com. And then I also use Payhip, which is ebook only, where you can make a website with ebooks, and then when people purchase your ebooks, you get a commission. And so those are the 3 sites I use to publish my books. But there are, I don't want to say hundreds, because I don't think there are hundreds, but there are a lot of sites to choose from. Again, this is another time, because if you're at the time that I started, there were two publishing companies I knew about. One of them does not sell your books. They only print your books and mail them to you, and then there's 48-hour books, you use them, you sell them as you please, or you can give them out, freebies. And then there's another publishing company, which I can't think of at the moment. At the time, they didn't sell your books either, but I believe they do now. And if they don't, I do know that they do have a servicing. So they do services for you. They sell them for you. They also publish it for you, and cover, book design, and all that, what we talked about in the last video. But during that time, those were the only 2 companies I knew about, so there wasn't much choice that I could use. There wasn't much decision making. Later, my mother had a speaking engagement, and when we went, someone who came up before her talked about her book, and she mentioned Lulu.com. That's how I heard about Lulu.com. And then I don't remember how I heard about CreateSpace, but I did later. All of the other companies that now exist, now that I'm already an established author, I really don't care to change companies right now. So that's why I never really had to choose one or the other. But as for you, if you've never published a book, you now have a lot of choices, and it just takes time for you to look through, sift through each website and figure out which one you believe is best for you. If you are self-publishing, know that this is the beginning of your book career, not the end, and that it's going to take a lot of work and or a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of work and money. However, if you pay people to do it for you, it'll just be a lot of money. But the one thing you're going to need is patience, consistency, persistence. You can't give up because you don't see an instant you don't have instant gratification. You're not going to receive instant gratification. One of the things that might discourage you, but don't let it, is that once you publish that book, you're going to tell all your family and friends, and you're going to think they're going to buy 1,000 books. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry to tell you that. I know you're going to think, no, my family loves you. Yes, they love you. Your family and your friends, they love you, they love you, love you. But for the most part, that doesn't mean they're going to go out and buy your book, especially if they're not readers. People who are not readers are just not readers, and they don't care who wrote a book. They're just not going to. And so you're going to really have to depend on outside people who have no clue who you are. And so it's going to take a lot of work, which we'll discuss next week. But this week is just about self-publishing. There's not much to talk about self-publishing. I've already discussed the most, and I'm going to share links below to show you. And then you can decide which company you're going to use, and then you put your book together, publish it, and then you, depending on which book company you use, you order your first book, and then you get it. And then what I would highly suggest is that once you get it, before you even announce that you published a book, read it. You say, why would I read it? Because chances are you're going to find another mistake. Believe it or not, no matter how many times, we've already talked about you editing it yourself 3 times and then asking a friend to edit it and then getting a professional editor. Believe it or not, you get that book, you just might find something else you're not happy with, and then you'll have to change it. And so read it. And then if you're glad with it, Then you start the actual process of marketing the book and telling all your family and friends. It is a nice feeling to have your actual book in your hand and to read it. It is a wonderful feeling, and it doesn't matter how many books you publish. Each time you publish a new book, it's still a wonderful feeling. And so that's it for this video. Below again are the websites that you can use to publish your book. And the good thing about these websites, a lot of them, is you can publish your book in minutes, really, and have your book up and running, ready to sell in minutes. But like I said, don't expect to be a best-selling author in days and weeks and months. You know, it takes time, it takes lots of patience. As I said in other videos, success does not come out of a microwave. It takes lots of time, persistence, consistency, and patience in any business. It doesn't matter what type of business you have, that's what it takes. And of course, lots of money. And you have to just keep at it. Don't stop. If you truly believe this is what you want to be and what you're supposed to do, being an author, then it has to be your life. It can't be, well, it didn't work out, I give up, I'm going back to my 9 to 5. It has to be something that you continue to do. And if you are able to, keep your job, because you're going to need the money to market this book. That's it for this week on self-publishing, specifically talking about self-publishing. If you missed all the other videos, you can go back and watch them, because you're going to need to watch those before you even think about publishing a book. That's it for now. Have a great day.